Good afternoon, everyone. This is our latest episode of Under the Hood, Driven by Detail. Today, we're delighted and honoured to be joined by Gilbert Groot, founder and CEO of JLM Lubricants. Gilbert, thank you so much for taking time to travel over, especially just to talk to us here on the podcast. We're also joined by Lara Poole, as always, from hbdennis, and Keith Lennon from Keith Lennon Motors. Gilbert, tell us a bit about yourself first. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, where to start? With Gilbert Groot, 52 years old, born and raised in the beautiful city of Alkmaar, famous of the cheese. And founder and managing director or CEO of JLM Lubricants. Started it in 2010, so 14 years ago. Father of two, girls 16 and 18. Big on sports. I'm not a super sportsman, but I just like to do sports when I can.
And you're a fan of Dennis Bergkamp.
Sorry?
You're a fan of Dennis Bergkamp.
Dennis Bergkamp. Yeah. Well, that's a while ago. Yeah. He's one of the famous soccer players. Yes. My team is AZ Alkmaar.
Okay, right.
So we're playing. We're not in the top three, but we're always kind of just up there, which is nice. And but I'm not a true soccer fan. My sports are kickboxing, mountain biking. I like to do a bit of running.
So you're all action.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to keep the head clear.
Yeah. Keep the stress level at par, so to speak.
So, JLM Lubricants, we know JLM Lubricants as a global company providing different additives for all different problems you may have with a vehicle, preventive maintenance, all the usual. I know your current slogan is JLM Lubricants, we understand cars.
Yes.
And tell us a bit about your background with cars.
I think ever since I was born, I've been with cars. So it's in the blood, if you like. And my dad used to have. He started early 70s. A technical, a distributorship in propane or autogas systems and parts. And I think when my brother was born, I have a younger brother. He started to have his first employee, because then my mother had to stay home with the two boys, myself and my brother. But I have customers from back then who remember me being in the baby trolley at work.
Yeah.
So sometimes I try to pitch, to sell something to the guys, and they say, Gilbert, you stay quiet, because I remember you being a little baby boy in your dad's office. But yeah, I've always worked there during holidays, on Saturdays. I worked in the conversion shop as a junior.
So you fitted the system. You not only sold the LPG systems, you fitted them as well.
So start at the basics, if you like, as a junior fitter. I wouldn't say a technician, because I'm far from a skilled technician. But I've been in the trunk, under the hood, underneath the car. I've seen it all. It was a good learning curve, and from there on, I think I really understand the workshop environment, what the characteristics are.
And to be fitting LPG kits, it's not something that's very common here in Ireland.
No.
But we're all aware of the memes that you see on Facebook and different social media platforms of the fella sitting in the car.
Where are you going?
He likes the cigarette. And
Yeah. I've been there.
have you any stories for?
Yes. It's a while ago, but there's a couple of things you'll never forget. One of the first thing as a junior, and you're fitting LPG systems, is you're going to drill holes in somebody's car. Now that alone is.
We all know where this is going.
Yeah. And we back then there was the filler housing. It was a 70 millimeter diameter hole, where you had to put the
nozzle.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have went well on last week's podcast. We actually had the drill out and everything.
Well, let's do it again.
It goes straight through the car. The other side.
So yeah, I mean, as careful as you prepare where you drill your hole, you have a look at, you find a proper spot on the panel on the outside, and then you check on the inside. But yeah, first you have to punch a little hole with a, can you call it prime or yeah. And when you don't do it right, and you put the 70 mil drill on, I'll never forget, and you don't do it carefully the first time, and you go.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Big Land Rover.
Yeah.
New paint job.
But yeah, I remember having to fit the copper pipe from the LPG tank to the front. So you had these clips, and you had these screws that you had to go work your way from the LPG tank inside of the trunk to the underneath, and then to the engine compartment. And there's been this is recorded, but I'll say it anyways. There's been multiple times when I drilled a hole into the petrol fuel tank, for example.
You're a junior, it's allowed.
Yeah, well, I was a junior, yeah. So don't blame me. Blame the the chief technician.
I'd sack you, but
And yeah, I mean, fit the LPG feeding pipe to a brake line, for example, stuff like that. I mean, I've made all the mistakes, and back then, I think nowadays you can't think of it, can't imagine it anymore. But yeah, I mean, smoking was quite common and accepted in the workplace. Yes, it happened. I witnessed it twice.
Really? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And it didn't happen because we were smoking, but we were smoking sort of continuously because, hey, we know we deal with LPG and propane every day, so you kind of trust what you're doing. But yeah, sometimes there was a small leakage in the workshop. And yeah, and there's a little spark.
we're all bald.
And but no, I mean, it afterward, it's extremely scary, but when it happens in a split second. So it's poof,
So
and it's over, and it's gone. So before you know it, it's gone, but then it sinks in like a few seconds later.
Then we realize there's no eyelashes or eyebrows on your face.
Oh my God, what has just happened?
The door.
But yeah, what happened to the roof? Yeah. So we got some drag for no reason. Yeah, but yeah. I mean,
I suppose because you're working with LPG the whole time, there's always going to be a smell of it. So it's not like if we were in here now, there's no smell of LPG, and if there was a bit of a leak, you might. Is there a smell of LPG even?
rotten egg smell. Yeah, but they do
that's
it.
an additive. That's an additive.
Yeah, they do it on purpose.
No, I'm just saying, but I'm saying
safety pulp or second smell.
if you're working with it all the time, there's going to be that smell in the workshop, so you're not going to know, oh shit, lads, there's a leak.
Yeah, gas doesn't have a natural smell.
No, yeah, you're correct.
You put the that rotten egg or sulfur smell in
Just for safety.
safety.
So you pick
so
it
you
up.
can detect it.
Yeah, I mean that lifting a car on the where you haven't properly put the what do you call the arms underneath the car,
Tracking points is.
so the car just drops. I mean,
You've seen it all.
don't worry.
It's amazing how everyone in the industry has elevated itself to a better standard now, as opposed to the 80s.
I agree.
And
Oh yeah, it's a world of difference.
You want a difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
there's no comparison.
I think years ago, like we all have like what am I, 22, 23 years in the trade, and some of the scandal stuff that went on, even 20 years ago, in comparison to now, you wouldn't dream of it now. It's like, that's the alien, don't do it. But then nobody seemed to give a bollocks, for want of a better word, like, to be honest,
I think people are more conscious of each other and of health and safety. The health and safety thing in the workplace has come.
But there's no crack anymore.
No,
There's no characters.
there's
There's no characters. We're talking about sport. Even in sport, there's no characters anymore. There's no
There's
fun.
no stories. There's everything so PC.
You know, even take
Too regulated.
too regulated.
Yeah.
Even take like snooker, which is one of the most boring sports. Back in the 80s, it was fun because you had characters playing snooker.
Yeah.
But even the
And
stuff,
they were fun.
even the stuff you got away with, like, that story you were saying about drilling a hole and stuff. No, it wasn't me, but it was in a dealership we worked in, right? And I'm not going to give the brand, but it was a pickup truck.
It's a Hilux, yeah.
No, it wasn't.
You were well informed.
It was a Dyna, right? It was a Toyota Dyna, right?
Yeah, those days.
yeah, so
those days.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was actually, this would have been the early 2000s. But we were mounting alarm boxes, right? And one of the lads, I think you know this story, do you? One of the lads was mounting the alarm box. So on the Dyna, you mount it up under the pedal box, or up under the glove box, should I say. And the usual, that looks like a good spot there. Drill bit and boom, daylight into the cab. Straight out through the front of it. What we got to do over to the parts department. No, it's just front of the van, over to the parts department, and he's wearing the stickers.
But yeah, no.
But you wouldn't get away with that stuff now. But back in the day,
It's talking about getting away with stuff. It starts getting back to me a little bit now. So let's do a special podcast on the old days. But at some point, I'm not sure what year, but there was the first lambda regulated LPG systems were introduced. I don't know, 90s somewhere. It was a Euro 2 car, I think, and that was a game changer back then. But what happened was, if you connected the LPG ECU to the car and everything, then it registered some fault code and the check engine light went on. Not everybody in the industry, but some just took a black tape and just on the dashboard, but really, I'm not kidding. That's how it was done. The smarter guys just cut the wire. But that was part of the industry doing it, but of course, completely the wrong way.
I think what you're saying, Gilbert, is Sean has now found his new Sith apprentice.
I don't think he wants me.
well, no, it just goes like.
I think I'm a very bad employee.
But even listening to the conversation now, like when you talk about taking bulbs out, like I suppose the back of my head, I go, oh no, and we're saying it on camera. Like, but it's just now, it's like the industry and the way it has evolved, like that stuff, now you just wouldn't get away with it. Whereas 30 years ago, that was just a done thing.
But I remember the lads when we were working there doing the lads side, that the sales team sent a car across to another place who put sunroofs in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
And I remember going over and asking them. I said, "How can you cut the thing too big?" And he goes, He says, "We start off with the smallest sunroof, but we have got a bigger sunroof."
There's it. Yeah, for emergencies on it. Yeah.
And I said to him, "What happens if you slip on the bigger sunroof?" Right? That did happen. There was a Corolla DX going around with a laminated roof. He cut too much. He got this laminate and put it on the roof.
Oh my God.
But it was accepted, right? Back then it was
Yeah.
a vinyl roof on it. The only vinyl roof Corolla going around Ireland.
Oh my God.
Someone's going to own that and going to watch this and going,
That's why I have this water leak.
Sell it to someone as an individual.
But I think it shows then was then and now is now, because the customer behavior, customer expectancy has changed a lot, but the profession has changed a lot. Technology was much more advanced, because back then the Euro 2, when the check engine light was going on, we didn't have the OBD2 to reset to read. There was an OBD simulator. So we just simulated the signal, so the light went off.
And that's a very valid point, and it's something we bring up a lot in the podcast here, that we're and particularly in work, and we're trying to drive it home with customers. 20 and 30 years ago, when your engine management light came on, you could just keep driving. Whereas now, you can't. You need to get to the garage to have it inspected. And I suppose.
But there is, we see, and I'm sure you see the same. People when the first state's warning light comes on, they don't care. They just continue driving until it gets red and the car gets in limp mode, because in limp mode you really have a problem, because the car is not taking you anywhere anymore.
But not all cars go red. To the engine management, like they don't, like. Yeah. So, but that's one of the big messages, I suppose, that we're all trying to get home here anyway.
but even the technology back, you're saying the technology in the 80s. Last weekend, myself and my son were in a John's 28, and we were in the tool store here in Dundalk. We're walking around. I was looking for a particular tool, and he says, "Dad, look at that little tiny toolbox." And it was a cantilever, and it was quite a big cantilever toolbox. I said, when I started off, that's all the tools you had. And he goes, "But no." He said he couldn't get this into his head. He says, "That you could fix the car with that?" Yes, that's all you needed back then. Cantilever toolbox, and whatever you had in that box wasn't all you needed to fix tools. And now,
monstrosities.
yeah, and the amount and the constants and there's if you're staying in this trade, you're constantly investing. You've just invested a lot of money in your workshop. You're always investing. We're always investing. And to stay on top of your game, and no different in your business, with as new technology comes the whole time, it requires more tooling, more fixes, more, there's so much more to go wrong with vehicles now.
Yeah, well, I think we work in a beautiful industry. We're right up there with the very latest technology, and it's just coming at us, and you just have to find your way.
It's true.
And if you don't educate yourself, if you don't invest, then I think you're very easily, very rapidly out of the game.
You have to evolve, and you have to, as you said, invest, but embrace the technology. If you
No, welcome it.
If you fight against it,
You lose it.
you're finished.
Yeah.
You're starting to
No, I agree.
we slide down.
Yeah. You have to keep an open mind and see how it can help you do your job.
A lot of the time we don't think of that. We don't realise what we're doing on a daily basis. And when people drive their cars on daily basis, they don't realise that the car they're driving, especially if it's a modern car from say 22 on, the technology in those cars, the technology in the ADAS system, it's constantly, as you're driving along, minding your own business, it's constantly watching road signs, people, other vehicles. It knows, it's got radars in it. It's got stuff that back when we're talking about drill holes, the front of diners. If we told you back then, see that car that's coming out, it's going to know what's coming up. Shut up. You wouldn't believe.
It's gone out to tell a man from a woman, a child from an adult.
We can't even do that anymore.
You can't, I can. G'day, Sheila.
Just checking.
Just checking.
Yeah, but I think I think this is also where there is a big difference between the independent garage and the main dealer. Yes, the main dealer also a lot of technology, the very latest technology and good training, but they get familiar cars every day. Independent aftermarket,
We get everything.
you get everything.
The biggest thing that we see with main dealers, and I spoke to one of our suppliers during the week, and he was saying that we operate a stocking system here where we carry our own stock. Now you carry our stock for Land Rovers, you carry better stock.
I don't carry a hell of a lot because I always meant on the fact that I'm not a factors. So when we have 4 or 5 more factors,
We chatted about 10 years ago. Me and him, we went talking many times over it. And his and Keto's logic was, I'm not a motor factor. And
but I don't have a battery stand because to kit a battery stand out correctly is
And
you
you have to
spend
keep,
2.5 grand.
and you have to keep
sitting in the
moving
battery,
them.
Yeah.
They have to move.
So as I
Yeah.
said,
that's what we're talking about, evolution. 20 years ago, you could have maybe 3 or 4 batteries.
Yeah.
And they probably covered a huge car park.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes to your product, Gilbert. 25, 30 years ago, people believed that additives and so forth were just snake potions. Now,
Fire juice.
yeah, fire juice,
Snake
yeah,
oil, magic in a bottle.
yeah. And everyone,
blinker fluid.
and everyone was very, very skeptical of them. I've been using additives for the last 12, 14 years. And I don't think I would have the success I have without them. But that's another part of how the industry has evolved, that we now need more equipment. And it might be only chemistry, but it's a vital tool in our arsenal for
It
fixing.
has grown to be.
Exactly that. Yeah. But just to go back to, because we'll come on to that next, but just to go back to what we're saying about main dealers, supplier we have was just chatting and saying that he's the main dealers now, because a lot of the larger brands, I shared some stuff during the week, Nissan's in big trouble. They reckon they've 12 to 14 months worth of money left, and if they don't get an investor quickly, they're gone. And let's face it, it's not going to happen. The government won't let it happen. But they're
Don't
way
forget,
ahead.
Japan is the most indebted nation in the world.
I should look.
Like, how are they?
I don't think any of them count any of the debts anymore. It doesn't like that.
But we're in a country that has a surplus.
Us?
Apparently so. Yeah. I don't think they ever done business studies, because the first page in business
Maybe
studies
don't,
are
so
put
keep
down
it that
your
way,
debt.
He's not.
Us in Iceland apparently are the only country in Europe that have a surplus.
With a surplus for a lot of things, there's not money. Anyway, I'm not going to kick that one off. Think, well, So yeah. So a lot of the main dealers started Volkswagen's in trouble. We all know a lot is in trouble. Yeah. They're not moving quick enough. They made a lot of wrong decisions. They made a lot of knee-jerk decisions regarding EVs and things like that they shouldn't have, that they were pressured into. They didn't make the right decisions, and a lot of people have turned their nose up at what they've produced and going, I don't like that. On a local perspective, the dealers around Ireland that are losing now these brands that they always relied on. Because we all say, like, if you go down, you go to McDonald's and you get a bad feed, you'll keep coming back. You go to a local restaurant or a local takeaway, you get bad feed once. You won't go back and tell half the country about it. So, like that to a brand over a door, you go to an independent, you go to any three of us, and you get a bad experience. You're not going to go back, and you're going to give us a 1-star on Google, and you're going to tell the country about it. But if you go to a main dealer, whether it be BMW or Audi or any of the big ones, and you have a bad experience, you'll keep going back. So you don't, the main dealers, they're losing that protection. They're using that blanket, but that safety net that they had. So they're starting to stock up. They're realizing, hang on a minute, we're not going to be solely this brand anymore. We're going to have to stay in business. We're going to have to turn into an independent. We've no choice. We're losing the dealership. They're going into the independence. But one of the reasons I know we found with staff and main dealer lads, McTechs, they're really good at what they do, but they're usually just trained in one brand.
Yeah.
And then what happens then they come, you could be a Toyota tech, and in fairness, Toyotas don't give that much trouble in general. And anything to do is usually it's probably it's a fault. It's nearly a fault in all of them. Whereas you come in, send a Toyota tech into a Volkswagen dealership with issues and things like that, and potentially he's just looking at a different animal, even though it's still an engine, it's the same setup. Or to send him down to a Land Rover, as you said, how many different communication systems are on a Land Rover in comparison to some of the other vehicles. It's very challenging, very changing times in the industry, especially here in Ireland, that I'd safely say in the next 2 to 3 years, you'd see a massive change. You'd see a lot of places have turned from mainstream dealers to independents. There's a lot there going on. And as you'll see now, there's a serious amount of changes happening. I know when we were, one of the things we were chatting about the other day was a lot of the main dealers going independents. I'm going to be dealing with a lot of different brands now that we are already doing. And I said, that won't work for them. And they said, well, why won't it work for them? I said, well, one of the reasons we struggle to get staff as independents, we're offering better money than the main dealers are offering, but the lads don't want to come to us because they're only retraining one brand, and to come in here, they sort of have to. So if you're going to turn around and these main dealers are now going to do all brands, the lads are going to say, well, what's the point in sitting here when we can go down to Sean or Keith or Larry and get at least an extra 200 quid a week?
Because they probably feel safe.
And they feel safe there, but now that they're going to be, that's what I'm saying to you, that safety net now is going to be gone.
But they're going to be in a big company. You probably feel like in nature, you have safety in numbers maybe. That kind of in a small company from a commercial point of view as well, a small company is probably perceived as much more of a liability than a big company. There's the word in banking, they're never too big to go bust. So technically it's not true, but they probably feel a bit more comfortable.
Well, I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think also the reputation of a main dealer, I'm not saying it's correct, but the reputation, the main dealer as a business, may be better perceived than the independent aftermarket, which is completely incorrect, but that's maybe the general perception by the public.
I have an example of that. I took on a young lad, now this is going back a few years ago, but he was in a main dealer and he lived local. Turned out to be a cracking lad. He did come on board in the end, but he was a cracking lad. But when he came up, he was, obviously we were going through everything and I was showing him the workshop, and one of the questions he asked me, like, is everything done properly here? Yeah. If I'm going to move, is it all done properly? His dad was advising him that make sure everything's right up there. Like, in other words, am I putting him through his time correctly? Are systems in place? Is everything done right? But that's a perfect example.
I was just going to say, like, define properly.
That's exactly it. The main dealer, like in many businesses that get so big, they get fat, and they don't be as efficient as they could be. That could be it. You talk about legacy manufacturers and dealers struggling. They kind of, like, as you said there, what is done right, what's right, what's perceived as right, as you were saying, the perception of the dealer is saying that these are higher, and let's face it, for the last quarter of a century, they really have upped the game. The main dealer, 30 years ago.
So did the independent aftermarket.
Yeah, but we had to chase.
But yeah, and
Try
it
to
maybe
find it.
come from a lower position.
It
But
did,
I think
yeah.
now that's maybe I think still maybe a bit of an image problem.
Yeah.
But I think the reality of the independent aftermarket, I think
I think for the
it's a
main,
lot there.
I think the
Rapidly going up.
I think the biggest struggle the main dealers are going to have now when they do lose a lot of these agencies is they're going to be like a rabbit in the headlights for a second, not forever, but for an amount of time, because we've had to live with this for years. How long are you in your own?
20 years.
How long are you in your own?
So,
Yeah, so I'm 2008. So that's but 16 years now. We've had to find our own way.
Yeah.
We couldn't ring the phone to Belgium if we're working on Toyota for tech support. We couldn't ring. We still can't ring it. We still can't ring them. So we had to find our way. We had to find information the hard way. So we have.
but what you find, John, when a dealer comes out of a brand, they're still affiliated with that brand for a long time. So likes to keep kind of gets a bit of affiliation for a certain brand that he sells. He still until maybe a decade down the road, when the technology in the car has changed, and the guys in the dealerships can't get out of training anymore.
Yeah.
It's only then do they start feeling the pinch.
But I'm saying if they start taking on other brands of cars.
But I don't think they will. I think they'll stick to the brand they know, and just start becoming a second-hand dealer.
Or that.
There's an issue in that straight away though, Larry, because most of if that is the case and that's the way things go, I don't know, the future will only show that. But your unit in Airside, my unit in Finglas, your unit here, Sean, we don't have the overheads of the glass box that these boys have built. And if they lose that franchise, and they do try to become an independent,
the figures won't stack up.
I don't see it. Like,
I don't know, lads. If it's a worldwide,
I don't know if that's going to be the way.
From a worldwide perspective, of a 4% profit margin on a main dealership, that's a worldwide statistic on any dealership around the world, which is incredibly weird. 4% is not a big margin. I know from a brand in Ireland that was a dealer, that lost a dealer, and is doing better now than they ever did when they were a dealer in Dublin, because they don't have the constraints and the overheads of being a dealer. The cost coming in, somebody coming in, they got a new clipboard, and now they're aware the head of VP marketing. You walk in, oh, that grey is not exactly terracotta grey. There's no such thing as terracotta grey, but that's not terracotta grey. And you then have to redecorate your whole place at the cost of redecorating the place. Or someone comes in, oh, I'm the new warranty manager, and I have to show that I'm doing my job. Keith, you never put a washer in that €10,000 warranty claim you're making now, and that washer costs 2 cents. You're now not getting a 10 grand. And you can't argue.
Yeah,
Do you know that those silly things that unfortunately dealers have to play in those realms? If you're out of that network for 4% profit margin, it's not in it.
Just what you're talking about there, I know it happened to a Scania dealer, I'm not going to say where, in Ireland. A Scania dealer got his own signs made up. A lot of the things in the main, they want you to buy the signs. If you go to the BMW now, fair enough, I get it. Myself and Debbie spoke about it. We were in a BMW dealership not too long ago, and he just said, I just happened to make the point that week I set a coffee stack. I remember chatting that it wasn't Gavin Hines, it was another lad that was over Joe Duffy BMW. He told me the cost, I think it was about 30,000 or something.
The front counter?
No, it's the coffee stand, not even the front counter. And he says, we all have to buy them. It's about 30k. And I said, you have no laugh. He said, it's either that or
don't get it.
Truck BMW.
Yeah.
Toilet stands, yeah.
But the Scania dealer, he made his own signs, put them out the window. Someone come out from Scania, or Scania, whatever it is. The width and the height has to be a certain percentage of each other. And guess what?
Take it off.
There was a different, it was too narrow for the height it was. Every sign in the facility we pulled down. But it was just someone, as you say.
But you know what? I have a brand, JLM Lubricants, obviously. Yes, that's why I'm here. I would be the same as Scania. I understand what you're saying, because it's
Oh, I understand. Yeah,
a waste of money.
I'm saying that, but I'd still be the same myself.
But our brand is the most important thing we have. We can have the best products for DPF or whatever you can think, but top of the line is our brand is key, and it's critical that wherever we present the brand, whether it's on the wall or wherever, it has to be exactly the same. Everywhere, yes, and that's a big challenge. So if you allow everybody, with all the right reasons, with all the best intentions, that they put up our logo somewhere, but in the wrong color, it starts to dilute the perception that people are getting from your brand. And if the brand message and the brand perception is not everywhere the same, it means it's everywhere wrong. And there's only one way of going about it, and that is that
The right way. Yeah.
zero tolerance.
Yeah.
But these discussions we have as well, and we're not a Scania corporation, so sometimes they okay.
The one
If you're due to replace it, then
There's a bit of flexibility.
yeah, of course, it has to be, because you're in a partnership anyways. But
That's why, that's exactly what you say there. In any relationship or partnership, whether it's with your wife, your partner, it has to be 50-50. As soon as it starts doing that, even in a business transaction, it's bad. Or if it does that, it's bad.
I would not survive without customers.
Yeah,
I hate to break it. But I mean, and for us, we're building our brand, and we cannot. I have no interest in one-off sales, for example. I'm happy with every sale we're getting, of course. But we're building our brand, and when you're building a brand, you can only work on a partnership basis rather than supplier-customer.
Yeah.
If it's a supplier-customer, it's always by nature a bit of a
Friction.
yeah. And there's always difference in interest, of course, but we want to build our brand.
And there'll be no loyalty. When there's friction and abrasiveness, there's no loyalty.
It's like that, yeah. So I'm a very bad seller. If you don't want my product, and you really don't want it, and I'll try a couple of times, but if you really don't want it, then fine. Yeah.
But one of the things we spoke of as well, and you mentioned, was we spoke on the phone a few weeks ago, and I said, look, how's things going? How's your job going? And well, and you said you have a lot of problems. Well, not problem, but it's difficult with the red tape because we're working with chemicals and things. But one of the other things you mentioned, and we find it's the same everywhere. Again, no matter what trade you're doing, no matter if you're working in a restaurant, a workshop, working with chemicals, managing customer expectations.
Yeah.
So some people expect too much of
Any product.
anything,
Because,
say any service, any product. They expect magic. They're not.
Magic in a bottle. I have
They
the
are-
best job in the world.
you-
I
that's
sell
what-
magic in a bottle.
Yeah, I'd say you get a lot of that with the products that you be selling. Like lads would, unreasonable lads would, or some of them might expect.
Depends on the
Put
narrative.
the magic
that's sold.
potion into a fuel
It
tank.
depends on the narrative how it's sold. Is it sold as a fix or is it sold as prevention?
Yeah, and there are fixes.
Yeah.
But there are also products that are not fixes, and you have to be very clear. The way we look at it, and it's a challenge. Sometimes we're off, but sometimes we get feedback from our customers that, oh, Gilbert, if you change the message into so and so, it's better understood. So we carefully listen to that. So yeah, always open to suggestions, because we don't own the truth. I think the truth is in the market.
Yeah.
But it's extremely critical or important that our product does what we say it does on the tin.
Yeah.
And then there is the animations and the stories, and there's a lot of it, but it's customer expectation, and that's one side. sometimes the customer wants to hear a certain message. And on the other side, it's us trying not to overpromise, but we want to push our product into the market, so we don't want to underpromise either. So it's
a balance.
Yeah, and it's very tricky. And but for us, sorry, Sean. For us, it's our starting point is, if you go back to the brand, like, why are we doing this? Our customer, when we create our products, our customer is the technician. So the idea is that if we have a product, it has to help the technician doing its job in the workshop.
What we find is there's so many people, they wait until there's a problem, and then all of a sudden then they come with it. They're looking for a product.
But it's
And they need
typical
to-
human behavior. It's
I think people, and we've seen this in our last podcast where we spoke about DPFs and the problems, and mostly caused by carbon. And let's face it, the fuels, oils, fuels, they're all carbon based. So you're going to have a problem with carbon no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But what's slowly becoming more evident, as people more and more, cars have become a price that are no longer affordable. So older cars are going to say, we're going to go, I feel personally, we're going to go back to the 90s where people are going to hold on to the cars a lot longer. So therefore, they're going to have to, the technology that's in cars now wasn't there in the 90s. You could run around with a Carina E 2-litre completely carboned up, and if you give it a good rev, puff
That's
it
what
back,
we said
see it out the
earlier.
back.
Engine management light comes on, you just
Yeah.
kept driving, whereas now you cannot do that.
You can't do it anymore. So I think people are going to have to start realizing that you're going to need all these wee additives. You're going to have to go to your mechanic. You're going to have to, no different than going to your pharmacist to know what additives to put into you to get you back, to keep you going.
But it's what you say. Sorry,
No, you before away.
if you look at if you go on the social media or YouTube, and there's lots of videos of carboned up intakes.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, sometimes there's so much carbon that you can really just stick your head in, hand in,
and take lumps of it.
take lumps of it. And I think it's incredible that cars continue to drive like that. It's just amazing.
I think the message, and it's probably, as I said, this is my first time meeting you. I think the message is getting the products and getting the additives and all these lubricants that we need in early. So it's
From the
not,
car's new.
it's not a case of, my car now has 100,000 kilometers, I need to start doing this. You need to do it from the first service.
Well, that's nail on the head. But that's also, I think this podcast is a great opportunity for that. The motorist, our customer, the end user, consumer, has to understand that you have to look after your car. You have to do regular maintenance. Don't wait with your maintenance until the light goes on.
I'm going to cut across. Regular maintenance is different now to what it was 15 years ago, and I think we need to. This is the point that we're trying to get across. Regular maintenance is not like maintaining a regular car in 2008.
No.
It's not.
From many perspectives, from the ridiculously long service intervals set up by manufacturers, from the car becoming more of a commodity, i.e. they just aren't as good. They aren't as strong. Like, you said about Carina E, unbreakable, oil and water, and that's it. In fairness to them,
Didn't rust, still be about.
yeah, they're kind of unbreakable. But that's down to what we're talking about the Euro 2. Emissions regulation has made the manufacturers having to chase this emission targets, and everything now is so finely balanced.
Yes, the tolerances are gone.
Tolerances are gone down to zero almost. Like the craziness of not running an oil pump all the time, the craziness of not running a water pump all the time. From a basic mechanic me to you, that just sounds ridiculous. Ridiculous. And because realistically in the real world it is ridiculous. But because manufacturers are driven to try get the very, very most efficiency out of an engine, they're doing this crazy stuff, putting zero W oil into anything. It's just ridiculously crazy. Doesn't make sense. If it don't,
But you're talking about that, Claire, and that's what we understand that, because as independents, we have no choice but to look into this. We need to study our oils. When you're working in the main dealer, you're just assuming what you've been handed over by the parts accountant. We had this conversation with a gentleman during the week. He was saying, a certain brand, they recommend this oil, and you've got nothing else. You're wrong. He accused me of putting the wrong oil in the car. I was like, no.
I get where he was coming from. He was coming from the warranty point of view.
He was, but it's still, you can't measure it. I mean, the car could blow up 6
Yeah.
months down the line. You can't tell the difference.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
the reality.
Like, no,
There is
really,
no, there is
if you get
way
into
to
the
tell.
oil and you want to start breaking it down, you know, he's not going to be. So first of all, you get your oil. So whatever he hands over 5W, whatever it is, or whatever 0W, whatever it is, as soon as that goes for testing what oil is in the car, you don't know because it's going to be tested at 100 degrees. So it's going to change the facility. Then it's going to have oil it's oxygenated. It's then dosed with nitrogen. Now with soot or soot, as Sean calls it soot, I call it soot. Brute. I call brute. Keith calls her brute. But we all this stuff is getting chucked into the oil. I may even say ammonia from traces of AdBlue going back through the low.
I tell you, the oil in the oil pan is a little chemical factory.
Yeah.
That is what it is. Yeah. And if you don't maintain it properly, you get all sorts of nasty stuff coming out.
Yeah, like we started to reduce our service intervals down to 12,000 kilometers. Just purely studying more and more that oil struggles. Once oil goes above 5,000 miles, it starts struggling. It's breaking. It's suffering to shear, so shearing of the oil. Oil is starting to break down. What you might get to 7,500 miles, which is 12,000 kilometers. That's purely because of the additive packs in oil.
Yeah.
But it's flat out. It's like the donkey that's given up at that stage. Wow. So it's crazy to try push on to 30,000. That's just.
So, and just to back up what Lara's saying, and it's something that independents that are trying to keep ahead of the game, like we have to understand the most basic thing to a car, apart from the 12 volts, is oil. It's like blood to me and you. And we have to understand it. Whereas the lads in the main dealers, they don't necessarily need to, if that makes sense, because they have the background and the back end of the manufacturer and whatnot. But we really need to know our stuff. And to turn around and say, right, question us on what we're doing, right? So, right, okay, that's all right. I'll take the question.
But debate is always good. A debate is always good.
Brilliant, yeah, because it keeps
it interesting.
It keeps us on our toes. Just as lad were we right what we said there? But the reality is, you go onto the main dealers and a car serviced by a main dealer, and look at the amount of failures. They're everywhere. And you turn around, how many Land Rovers are failing you? And I don't mean that zeros. Yeah, none. Because you've understood, you've gone deeper. You say, right, hang on, where's the problem here? Let's start. The oils, the additives, how can I keep this customer on the road? Yeah, they're spending more money with you because they're servicing more often. But guess what? They're not spending 20,000 euros in the main dealer on an engine.
Like the first one, and this comes into oils and additives. Not many people realise, we're going back again 30 years ago. 30 years ago or 40 years ago, your first oil change is at 500 miles. And you changed the oil back then.
Yeah.
And the filings.
And the filings got out. Shock horror. That hasn't changed. So I've done testing there, and we serviced a car 4 times in the first 10,000 kilometers. Thank you, 4 times. So 500, 2,500, 5,000, and 7,500. And the metal particles in the oil from the first oil change at 500 miles went from 90 parts per million down to 9 parts per million by the time we got to 7,500.
Yeah.
And that was a 7,500. So you can imagine if that oil wasn't changed up to 30,000, how much metal is racing around the engine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this is where we implement that. We use additives to clean the engine, and we use oil more frequent oil changes, to change. We're talking about main dealers against independents, or not against, both in the same spectrum. But our ideology as independent, I would feel, is that we need to make the car that we maintain last 1 million miles. The main dealer just needs to get the car past warranty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I've been a strong advocate of additives, because I find that they do help me achieve what I'm trying to achieve.
That's the best pitch ever.
Can I get a job?
Let's talk about it. On the camera or off camera?
Right on, we can go home now.
This was an interview, by the way.
No, that's really good. Yeah.
Looks well on you, mate. There's it.
It's just your colour.
It's my colour.
Yeah.
Yeah, orange.
No, you're very true. And yeah, I think additives. It's because of the environmental systems that are put on a car to continue to meet the requirements. It hasn't made it easier for the car.
No, more difficult in fact.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
the old, I use it as a sausage balloon. You know, you blow up a balloon toy and you grab it and another bubble forms. Then you grab the bubble, another bubble forms, and it's an endless race.
And it's a snowball effect.
What
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
do the
This-
weekend?
What do you do at the weekend? Make blow balloons. Make doggies and make flowers out of balloons.
Oh, don't you?
I'm going to say it. Jesus.
That doesn't have the same tone, Sean.
It's gone to the dogs again, lads. Yeah, so yeah, it's like it's
Lost for words now.
yeah, I'm lost for words.
But that's because you don't get the analogy. Do you ever, when you blow a balloon, do you ever try to grab the
No,
air
I get the
and another
balloons.
one? Yeah, you
Yeah,
keep going.
yeah.
And that's the emissions trek. They're adding more and more emissions on, standards on. They're adding more and more, you know, started off with EGO.
1 EGR, 2 EGR,
Yours, yeah.
turbo, 2 turbos.
Yeah. DPF, you know, SCR, yeah. All in all, making it more difficult.
Yeah.
More
On
difficult.
it, please.
Yes.
Go. Don't stop. More of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because
And that's putting more stress on the engine and ultimately on the lubrication system. And then on the fueling system, so we have with the e-fuels that are in now, you know, the residue that the ethanol has in the fuel that's leaving on the injectors.
Yeah.
Which making the atomization of fuel much more difficult.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately then putting more carbon into our exhaust from incomplete
Yeah.
combustion.
And it's what you find is, in theory, it all works. Works very well.
Yeah.
Thin lines, but it works. Now, in real life, every car is driven in a different way. And
Different climates.
for starters, could be cold, could be warm, or hot even. Then there's the stop and go city traffic. Then there's the car that's only being used, once a week for a short drive, or maybe if the car is lucky, let's say, for a longer drive. But there's too many variables, and petrol or diesel, the fuel quality is also decisive. There's just so many external factors that are on the machine that has no tolerances anymore. So you'll see an effect, and the first effect is carbon.
Yeah.
As-
And that's why one oil can't fit all.
Yeah.
So when the manufacturer says, we have a 0W, that's why one oil, because if you take Ireland up in Donegal, it'll be cold.
Yeah.
You come down halfway onto Bannon Drain in Contrast Common, it's very, very damp.
Yeah.
Moisture getting in,
How do you know?
which,
Sure, you won't leave Dublin.
I'm a global traveller. We've been on to 6
Yeah, well,
continents
you
in the
brought your
world.
passport today to come up to Dundalk.
That was because I was voting yesterday and I left it in my back pocket.
We're not going political.
And down in Tramore, where it's a sunny southeast, they call it, where it's warmer. So one oil can't work in all variables.
No, you have to, but there's only place for one oil, so you have to.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
concessions either way,
Yeah,
and you have to accept. That there'll be some effects because you can't have the ideal.
yeah.
It's just not there.
Right, so I think on that, we'll wrap this episode up because as I say, we've just had a lovely chat, got an insight into Gilbert, who you are yourself, your background, and I think what we'll do is we'll wrap this up, and because we're going to keep the next one, we'll keep for the chemistry. So thanks again so much for coming over to chat to us. Lads, thanks for coming up. Blair, thanks for, I know it's a big deal for you to come up across the border from Dublin to Louth.
And he was in a Land Rover.
You can't talk. His BMW broke down.
They fucking did, actually, yeah.
Well, it's like
Land Rover goes beyond, Keith. Just remember that.
we're going beyond much. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Thanks so much, and keep an eye out for our next podcast. We're going to continue to chat with Gilbert, and we'll talk about the chemistry behind the products. Thanks for watching.